Let's talk about something real, something I had to learn the hard way, through more than a few jagged heartbreaks. There's this story, see, an ancient pattern that I believe is woven into the very fabric of our reality, playing out between men and women since the dawn of time. And I have to be honest with you, the ending is always the same, and it's always harsh. It's a universal law, as inescapable as gravity. I'm willing to bet you felt it. That first encounter, right? The air in the room just changes. It's this intoxicating spark, a jolt of energy that feels less like a meeting and more like a sacred homecoming. You feel this frequency, this vibration, that your soul has been scanning for your entire life. And suddenly, you've tuned in. Her eyes lock with yours, and it's like she's looking past your skin, past your defenses, and seeing the very core of who you are. For the first time, maybe in your whole life, you feel completely and utterly seen. But here's the devastating hook, the one that took me years to understand. In that profound, soul-shaking moment, she is not in love with you. The divine energy you're feeling, that incredible pull, it isn't a bond, it's a projection. Man, that's a tough pill to swallow, I know. It's like a splinter of sacred glass lodged deep in your soul. And if you ever want to be truly free, truly whole, you have to have the courage to pull it out. This conversation we're about to have, it's a journey into the heart of a radical awakening, and it isn't for the faint of heart. If any of this is starting to hum inside you, if you feel that low-frequency vibration of truth in what I'm saying, I want you to honor that feeling right now. Hit that like button, not for me, but as a salute to your own journey and your own scars. Subscribe to this channel, because we're going to be building the spiritual armor you need to navigate this path. And if you've ever felt that strange, unsettling feeling that you were loved for someone you weren't, do me a favor and drop a simple, "I'm not alone," or "I'm not crazy" in the comments. Trust me, my friend, you aren't alone in this sacred trial. You are not going insane. You are just beginning to wake up. I remember it so clearly. It always started with that same frequency, a feeling that felt so sacred, so destined, but was ultimately a beautiful deception. When she looked at me, her gaze was like a laser, cutting through all the surface-level stuff. But here's what I didn't get for the longest time. She wasn't seeing the real me. She wasn't seeing the guy who was still figuring things out, the one with hidden scars and a closet full of doubts. No, she was looking at me like an artist looks at a block of marble. She saw a masterpiece, a divine potential sculpted by the quiet power of her own imagination. She saw a spiritual blueprint of the man I could become, if only I followed her unspoken guidance. And when you're a man starved for genuine connection, feeling that intense energy focused on you is like standing in the sun after a lifetime in the cold. I mistook it for unconditional love. I thought, finally, someone who sees all of me. But the truth, I learned, was far more complex and, frankly, a hell of a lot more dangerous. I wasn't being seen, I was being measured. Every single thing I did, a word, a glance, even my silence was being held up against this invisible, perfect version of a man that existed only in the sacred temple of her own heart. I was being scanned, not for my authenticity, but for my ability to align with a destiny that she had already written for me. You've seen that flicker in her eyes, haven't you? That look across a dinner table that you think is hope, but maybe, just maybe, it's a profound spiritual hunger. A hunger to finally bring to life the ideal man she's carried inside her like a secret prayer since she was a little girl. You feel chosen, like you've won some cosmic lottery. But the reality is, you've just been auditioned for the lead role in a play, and the catch is, you've never even seen the script. You are a blank canvas, my friend, and she is the divine artist, ready to paint her magnum opus. But here's the part that really stings. The masterpiece was never you. It was always, and only ever, a reflection of her own inner world, her own unfulfilled spiritual longings. This is the foundational illusion, the grand, beautiful lie that has shattered more hearts than we can count. It's a divine tragedy that keeps replaying, a karmic loop that won't stop until one of us finally has the courage to turn on the lights. It took me a long time to figure this out, and honestly, I wouldn't have if I hadn't stumbled upon the work of this incredible guide, a true shaman of the psyche. His name was Carl Jung. Now, This guy wasn't your typical feel-good motivational speaker, dishing out empty platitudes that make you feel good for 5 minutes. No, Jung was more like a spiritual surgeon. He came armed with a scalpel made of pure, unadulterated truth, and he wasn't afraid to cut away the cancerous illusions that keep us all in chains. His entire life was a sacred mission, a deep dive into charting the vast, shadowy wilderness of what he called the unconscious. Think of it like a silent, powerful river of divine programming that flows just beneath the surface of your everyday thoughts. It's what's really dictating your desires, your fears, and ultimately, your destiny. He spent a lifetime staring right into that abyss, not with fear, but with the kind of reverence you'd expect from a true spiritual explorer. And from those dark, swirling depths, he pulled out a truth about the feminine frequency and its dance with the masculine that was so potent, so fundamentally unsettling, that most of our modern world still flinches away from it. He warned us. He warned all of us men. And not with a gentle tap on the shoulder, but with the unwavering, booming authority of a prophet who has seen the same devastating cycle play out for generations. What did he find? He discovered that a woman doesn't just fall in love with a man. That's way too simple. That's a child's understanding of a profoundly complex spiritual technology. Number. She falls in love with the idea of a man. She falls in love with a fantasy, a projection, an energetic ghost that her own soul conjures and casts upon you, like a movie projector lighting up a blank screen. And here's the real kicker, the part that should send a shiver down your spine. The vast majority of women are completely unaware that they're doing this. They're not being malicious. They're simply operating from a deep, ancient spiritual program, a sacred instinct that, for most, remains completely unawakened. This projection, this spiritual phantom, it actually has a name. Jung called it the animus. Let me break that down, because this is crucial. The animus is the unconscious masculine energy that resides within every woman's soul. It's her inner blueprint of the divine masculine. You can think of it as her own inner king, her inner warrior, her inner sage, all rolled into one. Now, when this inner masculine energy is mature, when she has done her own work to integrate it consciously, it becomes her source of incredible inner strength, her courage, her clarity. But what happens when it's immature? What happens when it's wounded from past experiences or just left to run wild in the shadows of her unconscious mind? It becomes a tyrant. It transforms into a shadow king, a spiritual possessor that begins to dictate her reality from a throne built of her own unhealed pain and wildly unrealistic fantasies. This is that invisible force, my friend, that makes a woman chase after the storm, the dangerous guy whose chaotic frequency feels exciting and passionate, while at the same time she rejects the steady, grounding presence of a good man who actually offers her peace. It's the energy that makes her argue with a kind of logic that makes no sense, that makes her try to dominate a situation with a force that has no wisdom behind it, and that allows her to moralize from a place of zero accountability. Jung didn't sugarcoat it. He called this a state of spiritual possession, a condition where the woman herself is no longer really at the wheel. Her conscious personality becomes a puppet dancing on the strings pulled by this inner, idealized masculine force. And you, my friend, are the puppet she has just chosen to animate. You're the unsuspecting actor who just got cast in the lead role of this sacred and often tragic drama. You think she chose you for your unique soul, for your individual essence. But the hard truth is, she only chose you because your current energy, your raw potential, is the closest match she can find to the character she needs to play out her own inner myth. So what happens when you, the real man with your own thoughts and feelings, inevitably start to deviate from her fantasy script? What happens when your own messy, beautiful humanity starts to bleed through the perfect costume she's draped over you? The play doesn't stop. Oh no, the story is too important. She simply changes the lead actor. She recasts the role with someone new, someone who can better fulfill the projection for a while. And you're left standing in the wings of the stage, heartbroken, utterly confused, and feeling completely humiliated, wondering what on earth you did wrong, what lines you messed up. So why do we fall for it? Why do I, and why do you, fall for this illusion, time and time again? Why do we so willingly, almost eagerly, step onto that stage and start performing. I'll tell you why. Because that deep, aching yearning for validation is one of the oldest and deepest wounds in the masculine soul. Our society has been training us for this role since we were little boys. We've been conditioned to believe that our worth, our very value as men, is something that has to be given to us from the outside, and most powerfully, by the feminine. We have a fundamental confusion between being desired and being known. We mistake being chosen for a role with being truly seen and accepted for our authentic selves. So, when she leans in and whispers those intoxicating, soul-soothing words, "You're different," we believe her. Man, we drink it in like a man who's been crawling through the desert drinks water, never realizing that it's a divine poison. You're not different. You are simply the latest face she has cast to fulfill a sacred role she's been rehearsing in the theater of her own mind since she was a girl. And when that fantasy inevitably comes crashing down, when the mask that you didn't even know you were wearing finally slips off, you're left standing in the rubble, feeling utterly betrayed. But let me ask you a question that might change everything. What did you actually do wrong? The answer is nothing. You just stopped being a convincing actor in someone else's play. You let your true self start to show, and guess what? Your true self wasn't in the script. The only way, and I mean the only way, to break free from this devastating cycle, the only escape hatch from this psychological theater, is through what Jung called the path of individuation. This is the sacred, and let me be clear, often brutal, lifelong pilgrimage of becoming whole and sovereign within yourself. It's the journey of pulling back your own projections from the world and taking radical, 100% responsibility for your own inner state. And here's the uncomfortable truth, the one that most men will spend their entire lives running from. Most of you will never even start this journey. You'll stay trapped in the first act of the play, forever chasing the applause of an audience that will always, eventually get bored. Let me be crystal clear. This sacred pilgrimage of individuation is anything but glamorous. This isn't something you can fix with a weekend workshop or by reading a self-help book. This is a brutal, soul-forging process. It's the real work. It demands that you have the courage to venture into the dark, forgotten corners of your own soul and confront the exiled fragments of yourself that you have buried in the shadows. It requires you to look your own weakness, your own insecurity, your own brokenness, right in the eye. You have to face that frightened little boy inside of you who is still desperately, pathetically, seeking approval from the outside world. This journey demands that you stop blaming women for not seeing you and finally, bravely, begin to see yourself. Because here's the secret, the universal law that Jung understood, that most men will go to their graves without ever grasping. You do not become a man by being chosen by a woman. You become a man by choosing yourself. You don't earn your worth from her affection. You claim it by standing alone in your own power, fully awake, fully responsible, and fully alive in your own sovereign energy. You see, the man who has bravely faced his own unconscious, the man who has looked at his own shadow and integrated it, he cannot be seduced by another person's projection. It's impossible. He's no longer a puppet waiting for someone else's fantasy to give him life, because he has become the author of his own reality. Jung once observed that the greatest tragedy of modern men isn't that they are rejected, it's that they are so willing to twist and contort themselves into whatever shape they believe will be accepted by others. You call it compromise, you call it being a good partner, you call it love. But Jung had a different, much more accurate name for it: self-betrayal. He warned that any man who ignores his own psychic and spiritual development, any man who refuses to do his own deep inner work, becomes a slave to the feminine projection. You literally bend yourself like wet clay into the shapes demanded by women who, ironically, don't even know their own true desires because they are also possessed by their own unconscious forces. You stop being men, and you start being masks, smiling, nodding, agreeing, performing, day after day, until you forget the true, powerful face that lies beneath it all. And the women? Oh, they can sense this. They can feel it on a deep, vibrational level. They feel your lack of a solid, sovereign core more profoundly than you could ever possibly imagine. And here's the paradox that will break your brain if you let it. The very qualities that you think will make her love you, your constant availability, your predictable obedience, your desperate eagerness to please these, become the very reasons that her raw, primal attraction for you withers and dies on the vine. Why? Because the raw feminine instinct, as Jung taught us, isn't ultimately drawn to what is comfortable and safe. It's drawn to mystery. It's drawn to risk. It is drawn to the man that she cannot fully define, the man she cannot completely control. The very moment you make yourself completely knowable, the second you surrender your own boundaries and your own spiritual backbone just to win her approval, you don't become more lovable in her eyes. You become invisible. You become disposable. You become utterly replaceable. And this, my friend, is the soul-crushing paradox that keeps most men enslaved for their entire lives. You fear being alone more than you fear being fake. You would rather lose your own soul than risk losing her. You would rather live a lie playing a role than face the terrifying, liberating freedom of standing on your own without applause. But Jung taught that until a man has the courage to embrace that solitude, until he can stand on his own 2 feet in the vast, quiet emptiness of his own being, he will never, ever be free. He wrote that the path of individuation is not for the faint of heart, because, in a way, it requires you to die before you die. It requires you to let all the false, approval-seeking versions of yourself burn away in the fires of self-awareness, so that something real, something authentic, something truly divine can finally be born from the ashes. But let me tell you a secret, my friend, a truth that most spiritual teachers are too afraid to say out loud. This path of individuation, this journey to wholeness, it is lonely. It is terrifyingly lonely, because as you walk this path, as you start to reclaim the lost and forgotten parts of yourself, you begin to see things in the world that you can never, ever unsee. You start to recognize the subtle games people play, the invisible energetic contracts, the masks that everyone wears, and the intricate, beautiful lies they tell themselves every single day just to feel safe inside their comfortable illusions. And when you try to share what you're seeing, when you speak from this new place of profound clarity and truth, the world of the unawakened, the world of the sleeping, they will not celebrate you. They will mock you. They will call you cold. They will call you arrogant. They will tell you that you're too serious. They will accuse you of being the problem. But you must understand this with every single fiber of your being. You are not the problem. You have become the mirror. And people, my friend, despise the mirror when it shows them a reflection they are not yet ready to face. Jung knew this intimately. He spent his entire career working with patients who were terrified to confront their own shadow, the dark, rejected, unloved parts of their own psyche that they refused to acknowledge. And women, Jung warned, are often raised in cultures that actively reward them for avoiding this same confrontation. They are praised for being nice, for being agreeable, for sacrificing themselves. They are told that they are pure, emotional, intuitive, and already complete, just as they are. But Jung saw right through this massive societal illusion. He wrote that the greatest danger to any woman is her own unconscious, animus, that voice inside her, that speaks with a false certainty, a false authority, and a false sense of moral superiority. He warned that if a woman does not consciously face and integrate this powerful inner masculine force, she becomes a prisoner to it. She projects it onto every man she meets, blaming them for the very inner war that she herself refuses to fight. And there you are, my friend, standing right in the line of fire, thinking you're her savior. You believe that you will be the exception to the rule. You think that if you just love her hard enough, if you prove yourself loud enough, if you perform your role perfectly enough, that she will finally wake up and choose the real you. But that is not how this universal law of projection works. Projection is a thief. It steals reality and replaces it with a beautiful, intoxicating illusion. And until both men and women awaken from this shared trance, they are destined to repeat the same heartbreaking tragedy, over and over and over again, each one pointing the finger at the other, never realizing that they are both just dancing with their own shadows. And here is the most ironic and painful twist of all. The woman who once saw you as her hero, the man who could do no wrong in her eyes, will one day see you as her enemy, the source of all her pain and disappointment. And it's not because you changed. It's because you failed to perfectly fulfill the fantasy that she projected onto you. And the craziest part, she will have no conscious awareness that she is even doing this. You didn't lie to her. You didn't betray her. You simply disappointed the invisible character, the spiritual ghost that she invented in her own unconscious mind. The tragic truth is, you were never him to begin with. And that is why she resents you, not for your very real human flaws, but for your failure to live up to the impossible myth that she never even told you that you were hired to play. In that moment of brutal, soul-shattering clarity, when the whole illusion comes crashing down, you have two divine choices. You can blame her. You can let yourself become bitter and cynical. You can join the angry chorus of wounded men who point their fingers and rail against women, forever trapped in a cycle of resentment, cowards who never dared to face their own emptiness. Or, you can do what Jung would have demanded of you. You can turn inward. You can finally begin the lonely, terrifying, and ultimately liberating work of individuation. You can finally become whole, without needing anyone else on this planet to complete you. The deepest truth is this: the woman you are so desperately searching for out there in the world is, in fact, a reflection of the part of yourself that you have abandoned. Until you have the courage to face that abandoned part within, every single relationship you enter will be a performance, every connection will be a transaction, and every love will be a lie. But when you do face it, when you finally integrate your own anima, your own inner feminine soul, you become a man who no longer needs to chase women. You don't run after them. You don't try to manipulate them. You don't perform for them. You simply stand still, fully and completely, rooted in the unshakable truth of who you are. And from that place of profound inner alignment, something miraculous and completely unexpected begins to happen. You no longer attract women who need a character to fulfill their fantasy. You begin to attract women who desire the truth. And you will know it, my friend. You will feel it in your bones when it happens, because she will not demand that you perform. She won't try to change your script. She will stand before you, raw and real and whole, not as a goddess looking for you to worship her, but as a sovereign human being, ready to walk her own path right beside you. No masks, no projections, no games. And when you finally meet her, the real her, not the fantasy, you will see the difference instantly. She won't treat you like you're the missing piece of her puzzle, because she isn't looking to be completed. She has done the work. She has met her own shadow. She has confronted her own animus. And that is precisely why she won't need you to carry her soul for her. She will stand there, whole and complete in herself, looking you in the eye, not as a man she wants to mold and fix, but as a man she is finally, truly ready to meet. And in that sacred meeting, there is no desperation, there is no clinging, there is no performance, there is only truth. And that truth, as Jung taught us, is the rarest and most potent kind of love of all. It is a love that is born not from a place of need, but from a place of absolute freedom. The freedom to choose, the freedom to walk away, the freedom to stand together without illusions. And when you reach that sacred place, my friend, you will finally understand. You are not just a man. You are the entire universe, whole and complete, experiencing itself. And any connection in your life that does not honor that profound truth is not a connection at all. It is a cage. And it is time to set yourself free.